Question for you guys. You see there's two names here. I'm Joseph Muniz. Has anybody seen Aamir? I have not seen him all night. I'm kidding. Aamir actually was part of an investigation. So he works for Fortinet, and they caught some cyber criminals in the Philippines. So he's not going to be here. He's unfortunately with some Filipino boys in the Philippines while I'm here by myself. So I'm doing this by myself. So you have me. And as Ming was saying before we kicked them off, this is my third time doing this. We talked a couple years back on hacking through social media. So if you look up either name and Emily Williams, as well as RSA Europe, you'll see that data. And then last year we did one on hacking with Raspberry Pis, so how you can do a really cheap penetration test using Raspberry Pis. Today's topic that I have literally cut down because of the move on is on data. Now you're like, data, that sounds boring as hell. Data. Here's the deal. We all create data. Since you woke up this morning to when you go to bed tonight, if you do, when you use your phones, when you use your computers, when you use social media, you create data. And that data, that footprint, is going to be the topic of abuse for today. True story and how the numbers look. Today, we all have about 15 billion IP addresses. So what I mean by that is, I have an iWatch, iPhone, laptop off because it's DEF CON. I'm sure you guys have 3 to 4 IP addresses. The average person 1 to 2 IP addresses. You take all of that. You take the entire world's IP addresses. They're saying 15, 16 billion IP addresses. What they're saying is by 2030, there's going to be 500 billion IP addresses. What that means is a lot of stuff to hack, yay. But what it means is this chandelier, the water dispenser, all have IP addresses. The flowers in front of the casino will have IP addresses. They will tell you when they need sunlight and when they need water. When you go home in 2030 to your IP address-enabled house, your stove, your lights, everything will have IP addresses. That also is going to create a footprint. So if the right person's looking, I can see how you cook and figure out you may have some kind of health problem because you cook the same way and you're creating a footprint. So this whole idea of footprint and data and the data we leave is going to become more and more as all these devices go online. This is just the reality, whether you want to go there or not. That's the future. And the problem is a lot of people don't think about security. They do and they don't. And what I mean is they don't think about like, oh yeah, this phone was hacked and some celebrities' pictures are up there, but they don't actually relate it to themselves. We see family members, especially like young teens, they just add apps. They just friend connect apps. They don't think about the security involved. Companies being owned, it's either big or it's like extreme, like Target, or it's like a celebrity. They don't think about this. So the premise of what I'm going to talk about now is proving and abusing this idea of data. And basically, you think you deleted the data, but it's still really there. My name is Joseph Muniz. I work at Cisco. I'm an architect. I cover America, South America, and Canada, talk to a bunch of people. Aamir with the Filipino boys works at Fortinet. And we've done a few books together. Those are some of the books we've done together. We have a new book coming out in the spring on forensics for the engineer, so like a network engineer forensics book. That will be coming out. I just did a Cisco press book. I'll give one away at some point today for some random reason. That's my book. So we've done books. We've done a lot of stuff. The ask for you today is think about this topic for yourself as well as for people around you. Like Thanksgiving, Christmas time, you may want to talk to your cousins or nephews, talk about this as well, because I'm going to show some of the people that we did research on. They were pretty good, but their associations were their vulnerability. So here's how we'll start the topic. Deleting. Deleting 101. When you press delete, when you slide delete, the reality is this. The data is still there. A lot of people know that, but you don't really think about that. When you hit delete, the data is there until something replaces it. So it's a vulnerability because unless you're forensically cleaning every time you delete something, the data is still there. And mentally, you're saying it's not there anymore, but it's still there and somebody can access that data. Same goes for when people delete stuff and then sell stuff on eBay, which is what I'm going to abuse here in a few minutes. Or people use burner phones not thinking that stuff they associated the phone with could actually relate back to who they are. So the premise is, let's do zero-touch hacking, as Aamir likes to say. Let's look at hard drives, phones, apps, and social media, and basically abuse this concept. So for hard drives, we're going to talk about when we bought hard drives, and we're going to talk about some tactics we used to buy the right hard drive, and then the forensics tools we used, and what we found from those hard drives. Phones are expensive, so we didn't buy a lot. I mean, even like an old iPhone in third world countries is still pretty expensive, but we bought phones, and same kind of concept. We want to see what kind of data we can find. Apps is an interesting topic. So you guys probably know the Pokemon Go app. When that app first came out, the privilege levels in that app were stupid. It was asking to not only have access to like your email, it was able to email on your behalf. It was able to access your entire Gmail account, so all of your storage drives, just stuff it didn't need. And we're gonna, this problem continues to happen. We're gonna talk about abusing this, including like looking for apps that are very vulnerable or apps that have too much privileges and using them as proxies to attack you. So we'll talk about that concept. I keep saying we, he's not here. I'm gonna talk about this. Aamir somewhere else. I'm gonna talk about this. Also the idea of cloud connecting. Like Cisco, we just acquired CloudLock literally like 4 days ago because there's this problem that people will auto-connect apps. So like you're an admin and you got like Salesforce or Dropbox, and then one of your users signs in with some other app and connects that cloud connection, that CASB problem. And as an admin, you don't know that. And your data is basically being leaked because your users are cloud connecting. So that's a problem as well, and we're gonna abuse that. And then lastly, social media is social media. That should be a given on how bad that is. So those are the 4 areas. We'll start with hard drives. Now, hard drives, initially what we want, and we looked for somebody reselling a hard drive, we bought the hard drive and we found crap. Most likely it was a floor model hard drive, something that really didn't have anything interesting. So the idea is well, how do we actually find a hard drive that has interesting data? So the 4th topic is going to be around finding people on social media. We use those tactics. So to kind of summarize, you'll see like on eBay, people have a username. We'll take the username and then try to ask them a question to get their phone number. And then we'll use the phone number and username and start searching social media, because social media naturally wants to find the missing elements. It's about finding that lost friend or finding that lost college person. So if you give it a phone number, like you, for example, create a Gmail account that's fake, put that phone number and add it to Twitter, Twitter will go searching to see if there's other people. So by doing that, we can find who the people are that own the devices that are being sold and actually see why they're selling those. So the gold mine would be finding somebody who works in HR that's selling hard drives. And by doing that tactic, we found a lot of interesting hard drives. Now, the tool we use is FTK Imager. You can use many tools, that's just one that we chose. One thing about this is we did follow forensics guidelines. So if you're going to do this, it will make sense for you to not mess with the original. You do make a forensic copy. You can do DD or it's built in here, but you want to make copies and mess with the copies. I don't know, I mean, if we found child porn and we wanted to do something about it, if we mess with the original, then we can't do anything about it. So from a forensics perspective, you make copies, and at that point, you do a bit-by-bit copy, you access the hard drive, and basically, you're going to find the data that is there. And if you have the right target, you can find very interesting data. These are other tools, Incase, Redline. I mean, there's many you can do this, but the concept is knowing your target. If you just buy hard drives, that's like playing the lottery. You're not going to find anything. On the FTK Imager piece, again, straightforward, we found that. What we found, especially from the HR drive, you think about what you would find in an HR drive, like human resources. We found it. Half the images are stock, half are not. On the left-hand side, it says the greatest lesbian movies ever. That's real. I guess somebody at HR was going to fire somebody and had the evidence on their hard drive. That links to actually the greatest lesbian movies ever. Aamir actually watched them all and thought they were great. But we had, your regular social media. We think with this, the social security and all this, most likely this is when people are getting hired and get their stuff scanned in. We believe that that's the data. We also got one printer drive as well, and the printer drive actually had some interesting stuff. We thought it was an HR person, but it wasn't. It was somebody in management, but it still had interesting stuff. So if you know the target, find the hard drive, a lot of fun. Next topic is phones. Now phones, again, are pretty expensive, but we got some phones using the same tactics, finding people of interest. So we purchased phones, both iPhone and Android. The goal is not only with the phone to see what's on the hard drive, but to also find an older image and reload that image. Because then the apps that are auto-signed, you can auto get back into those apps. You can do geolocation stuff, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. You can track the person, get a lifestyle of that person. And so in this case, we use Blade. Blade, maybe because the alphabetical order B, we chose Blade, but there's many tools out there that can do this. Very similar, you want to not mess with the original, you clone it. You then go back, look for older images, load the image, see what you can find, voicemail, etc. Couple interesting things with the phones. So the phones have the IME number, the hardware number. So when you add a phone, the carrier tracks you. We've done some work with the authorities. So we checked out every phone we had, and every single phone was stolen and blacklisted. And what's supposed to happen is when a phone is stolen, if you try to put in a SIM card, it's supposed to not work. Every phone worked. So goes to show how that is. So AT&T and T-Mobile were the ones we did because they're part of the same GM. We could put the same SIM card in. But every phone, we checked with the authorities, was stolen. Every phone was on the blacklist. Every phone still worked regardless, which is, what's the point? So with the phones, very similar. You know, there's other tools you can use. Blade is a good one, many others. I'm going to talk about some of the app stuff here in a few minutes. But just from a phone perspective, we found a lot. To kind of show the findings, pretty much everything you can think of. Photos, contacts, your life. I mean, this is your life, if you think about it. And if I can pull up an older image, we can get into it. Now, one concept that also came up with this is tracking. I want you all to do this right now. We'll start with the iPhone users. If you're an iPhone user, you may think you're not being tracked, but you may not realize this. When you shut off tracking in the app, the phone is still tracking you. So let's all do this right now. Settings, privacy, location, and systems. See if you have this on. If you have it on, right under it, you're going to see everything you've been doing in Vegas. So last night when you were with the prostitute or whatever, or you went to the strip club, you're going to see the location. And I tell you, every time I tell people this, they look at it and they go, oh, shit. And you can literally see their history. So again, iPhone users, settings, privacy, locations, system services, see if you have frequent locations checked on. If you do, you're going to see your history. And if I steal your phone and pull up, I can literally go back in time and do this. Android users, same for you. And actually, to be cute about this, when Aamir was on a trip, I took his data and put it in the Google Maps, and I can literally see him shopping around New York City and over here and all that. So think about somebody Google mapping you here the last week at DEF CON. You know, we see a lot of stuff here, and then the strip club here, and the strip club here, and literally we can map it that way as well. So for Android, this is how to do that. For iOS, make sure your phone is not tracking you, because if it is, that's a footprint that's there that could be pulled up to figure out what you've been doing. Especially if you have like a husband or wife, and they want to see about things, and they understand this, they can actually answer that question, what you did last night. What about app security? Now, app security is a really funny one because as with the Pokemon Go, there are a lot of apps that have too much privileges. So we've decided to pick on the flashlight apps. So we went to the Android store and typed in flashlight, and a bunch of apps came up. Now, do you guys think they have the same privilege levels? What do you think? Look at that. Isn't that crazy? The first one was the first app to come up. And it asks for all sorts of stuff it does not need. Now, it's been fixed. We did contact them. But at the time, that was there. So a general flashlight would ask for this. So the idea is how can we abuse this? Well, all you got to do is write, which we did in a pen test, write a piece of malware that looks for that flashlight app and literally proxy those settings. So literally you're using the flashlight app to attack the phone because the app is already there. So it's really interesting that these apps basically have various requests, and you have really no way to know it unless you do the research on it. So flashlight app was the one that we were looking at, but there's, again, many other apps that have this issue. I was told to keep this quick. All right, so social media. This one is interesting. This started actually out with a real story where a friend of mine's sister started dating this guy. And because it's being recorded, I had to kind of hide some stuff, but the guy faded out. But he was on Cheater Report. And the girl, like wanted to date him, but saw the Cheater Report And she goes to him, hey, you're on Cheater Report. And his excuse was, oh, my ex-girlfriend's trying to make me look bad. But he said he's a VP at a company and had all this bull crap info. So we came to us and said, hey, research this guy. He did a really good job. His company was pretty legit. I did go back machine, saw he appeared. He had a lot of kind of fake data going around. So I was able to create a profile to show her, but she's not technical. She wanted a smoking gun. She wanted to see his face in a different name like that. Like I can show her all day long that it's fake. She doesn't understand botnets and all that. So in this use case, the way we tracked this guy down was every time there was employees and certain people commenting, we started researching them, and that's when we found the bullshit. Where literally that was like one of his coworkers that took him out the night before. That was his one of his other colleagues. So this goes back to that association thing where like maybe you're secure, but is your cousin, your wife, your friends not? Because we'll just social media go after you and do some of the tactics I'm going to talk about now to find data. And that's how we got this guy. So what are those tactics? Well, first thing is this. Even burner phones, anytime that you associate a device with something, you can use social media to be your hunter. This goes back to the first part of the conversation. You can create, if you get a phone number, if you get a username, if you get some form of data, what you can do is because social media has no platform, every version of social media, Facebook, Twitter, etc., will ask you for some form of data and will give you back some form of data. When you do a password reset and don't finish it, you may get back some form of data. So if you can literally breadcrumb together all of that, the Twitter stuff you get back, the Facebook stuff you get back, etc., you can start to get some interesting data. And that's an example with burner phones. We've been told by the authorities, we can't tell which group, but when we're told to track burner phones, usually the way that we can find these devices is based on the associations, meaning take that burner phone number and run it through all social media doing like password resets and stuff. And at that point, we can find some piece of evidence about the person and then use that to continue to social media search till we can find out who it is. And 9 times out of 10, well, a lot of times we find out who's using these phones. So it's not necessarily tracking the phone, it's tracking the associations. That's what the authorities are doing, by the way. That's how they're tracking you. That's, at least when we helped out, that's what they told us. So again, the tracking, the social media aspects, using that as a way of doing it, phone tracking, searching websites. There's a lot of this. You can Google this online, creating a fake Gmail account, creating the number there, importing that into social media apps, and let it hunt for you are good tactics for you to find people. Now, another fun one was app security and abusing apps. So some of these apps have auto settings to just share stuff. Flickr kind of hardened this, but PhotoBucket's the one I'm going to pick on, where we wanted to basically see, well, PhotoBucket can have a setting where it will auto share any photo you take to the cloud and puts it on a publicly accessible drive. So we decided to track some people using this tactic, and we found all sorts of stuff. First question is, there's these people with these horse masks on. Question I had was, who's taking the picture, and is that person also wearing a horse mask? I don't know. But of searching all this data, the one interesting one was we started tracking one guy who was selling copious amounts of marijuana. And what we think he was doing was he was tweeting or friending or texting his friends this data. But every time he took a picture, that picture would also go to PhotoBucket, and he didn't know it. So if he was doing like a deposit, a bank deposit, he would do a deposit, and the bank would do the deposit, and PhotoBucket would get a copy. When he would be like, dude, I just scored some cool cash, he would take a picture of the cash with himself, and it would go to PhotoBucket. And surprisingly, like, we just kept watching this guy post stuff that was crazy until one day we got the all-in-one. He was doing like his taxes or something, and then had his taxes with the money. So this reminds me of like the Dave Chappelle episode where like you had R. Kelly, he's pretending he's R. Kelly, and he says, all right, I'm gonna pee on you, but you have to show your ID, and the girls have the ID and all that to make sure you know they're of age. Exact same thing. You know who the guy is because there is his social info, there's the money, he had a picture before with the drugs. Literally the cops can just go here and just download that and say you're under arrest. So we thought this was humorous, and he just kept, again, we think it's tweeting and we think it's texting, but any picture taken, that app would share that picture online. So if you want to have some fun, go to the PhotoBucket, look for people's public apps. A lot of these people don't know what they're sharing, so any picture they take, it goes online. A lot of fun. So to wrap things up here, how do you defend against this stuff? You know, I talked about hard drives, phones, apps, and cloud. On the hard drive side, people ask, should I do 3 passes, 5 passes? How many passes to erase stuff? The hard drives are so cheap, destroy the hard drive. There's no reason to sell the hard drive. Drill into the disk or hammer the disk and break the drive. There's no reason to do it. But if you have to, then you want to do multiple passes to basically destroy the data. We're going to tell you to destroy the drive. There's really no reason. It's not profitable. Destroy the drive. Also, if you're like that guy selling the copious amounts of marijuana, use like Tails, use a secure boot. Don't even store the data in the first place. Don't use your personal phone. Don't use your laptop. This is obvious stuff. And don't use PhotoBucket. For mobile devices, the usual suspects for securing the phones, as well as don't use them unless you're going to use them. And realize if you're going to buy a burner phone for $30, don't actually associate that phone number with anything. Like a lot of times people come to a conference like this and they'll go, I'm going to use a burner phone for that as well. And then they do stuff at this conference and they sign in to like a capture the packet contest with their name with that phone number. That's how they're catching you. So think about how you use this phone as well, and think about the apps that are on there. And if you're going to have to sell it, hi. I know it's a 5-minute warning. I'm just being an ass. But those are basically some of the phone things you can do. And then lastly, social media. Now, this is a personal thing I do. Around Thanksgiving, Christmas time, I'll go to my niece and nephews and I'll say, hey guys, let me check your phone and make sure it's secure. They'll be like, no. I'll be like, well, did you know that if you share pictures and you have certain things set, your mom and dad and everybody will see those pictures? And they're like, really? Can I see the phone? Do that. The people that you're with, the people you associated, can be linked to you as well. If somebody is searching you, like that one guy, that douchebag guy, if I can't find who he is, I'm going to go through all of his contacts and do the exact same analyst. So you would think that if I'm going to do an analysis on your friends and family, you should also secure them as well. So do that. Don't use untrusted devices. I go to airports and hotels and I see people log into that. I'm like, you realize some hotel guy set up that computer. You really trust that person? Okay, have fun. So use trusted devices and segment your contacts. One of the problems we have is when people segment their contacts, I can't hit your associations because you have your private contacts and your friends. But most people don't do that. You do network segmentation. Why don't you do contact segmentation? You do that, then the people that you're associated, like your actual close friends and family, won't see the same posts and all that, so an outsider can't get in. So think about that as well. So the wrap up what I have here basically is, the problem is this: when you hit delete, there's a time. Regardless of who you are, how secure you are, there's a time from when you hit delete to when that data is actually deleted. And you should be more mindful of it because there's a lot of tools out there that make it really easy for people to get it, as well as tactics to basically search and find your data. So think about the footprint you have. Think about how you should secure that footprint. And then lastly, do the same thing for your friends and family as well as yourself. Due to the nature of time, that's what I have. Any quick questions? If not, I'll be around here to talk to me about. Questions quickly? Yeah, what's up?
What about SSDs? Because they're harder to destroy.
What about SSD?
Yeah.
Like an SSD drive?
Yeah.
What do you mean, what about, can we do forensically look up an SSD? Absolutely, or how do you destroy it?
Because it's not always a good idea, just because they're much more reliable than traditional hard drives. So do you still recommend physically destroying?
So the question is, do we still recommend physically destroying an SSD, or if not? In the end, we're going to recommend destroy a hard drive because that's the absolute. But if not, the multiple wipe stuff is okay. Hitting delete is just saying it's still open. You have to actually run a program that replaces a 1 and 0. So we're always going to recommend that and run multiple passes of that if you have to. But hard drive, we're always going to say destroy. Other questions? What's up?
Using biometrics, can't you be compelled by law enforcement to surrender a fingerprint but not your band?
Question about biometrics, yes, and that's true. So the question is, if you use biometrics, can they be compelled to use your finger for that? I hear yes, they'll handcuff you and they'll do your phone. That's why you use a weird finger, because after 2 or 3, it locks out. So they're going to try your thumb, they're going to try your other thumb. So you do like this finger or middle finger or something. And by that point, you purposely hit it and you get unlocked. Aamir actually went through that, and that was the tactic to get them, and we're like, screw you. So yeah, don't use your thumb. Yeah, next one. Yeah, you raise your hand, hi. So the question I hear you is, how many of these apps do we find that auto-load? So Flickr was doing it, but they fixed it. I think Aamir actually was the one that talked to them about it. PhotoBucket was it. We found about 3 or 4. I'm being recorded, so if I say the wrong one, they're going to get mad at me. So, but there's ones out there.
Do they keep the exif data, the metadata on the photos like that long?
Is the metadata there? Yeah. Yes, it is. You're like, yeah, it's there. Other questions? What's up?
So does the same thing apply to when you save stuff to the cloud? If you delete from the cloud, you still find it?
So it depends on what we're talking about. So the question is, if you delete from the cloud, can you still find it? A cloud is somebody else's computer. So I mean, that's what a cloud is. It depends on what cloud service we're talking about. And again, I don't want to throw a cloud name out there because that could be an issue. But if data is being deleted, unless it's being replaced by something else, the data is still there. That's Cloud 101. But I will say that the Pokemon app and some of that research, that was asking for your Gmail Drive account information. So technically speaking, the Pokemon app had access to your entire Gmail Drive. So if you're deleting stuff and all that through that app, you can hit it. So if some app has access to your cloud drive, like the Pokemon app, I can write something to use that app to get access to your drive and get data. So actually, that's the answer. Yeah.
So it's funny you mentioned Pokemon. My daughter's of that age and all over it.
So it's not you. You sure it's not you? You're not Pokemoning around? I'm kidding.
But the movie's twist.
Yeah.
Oh, at one point her phone got like somehow Google backup and lost everything.
Okay.
Fortunately, she had to send the SD card and put in there, right?
Okay.
We just threw on like Riot's forensic app, right?
Okay.
When
You found stuff?
I came back, it had everything. It not only had the shits you meant to say,
Right.
and then all
So the comment is,
chats, all the everything. That's
everything from the Pokemon app that his daughter had the history stuff. They fixed some of that, but so I don't know what version you have, but yeah.
It's levelware. And the Flash technology requires not overwrite, but rewrite so that over time,
Okay.
but all the unrewritten things are all
Are still there.
it
Yep.
has data before you cleaned it up and you deleted your own thing.
Yeah, it was really bad at the beginning. I'm not sure what else they fixed. Oh, is that it? We done? I think we're done. So if you have other questions, come see me. I got one book. I don't know how to get rid of it. Just throw it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.